that's worthwhile?
I mean, it's an interesting challenge. I would propose that, the so-called T-shaped expert is the right way to do it. So you have a very shallow knowledge of many, many areas and a deep specialization in one of them, maybe in two of them. So what I would recommend for people who want to have this kind of orienting, casual or sense-making understanding of history is to, first study one or two periods, not even periods, like one or two countries in a particular period, or one and two great institutions in a particular period, right? Perhaps, the medieval Catholic Church strikes up your interest. Perhaps, if it's an interest in your own country's history, Abraham Lincoln's presidential administration and the evolution of the presidency in the 19th century strikes up your interest. Perhaps, the 100 Years' War is remarkably interesting. And there's almost, an infinity of material that you can mine from the 100 Years' War. What does it include? It would, for example, include, the sociology of the formation of religious movements, right? Joan d'Arc. It would talk about modern state formation, right? As both the French and the English monarchy are competing, which can mobilize more troops, which can impose better systems of taxation. People today might not realize, but during the 100 Years' War, what we today think of as France and what we today think of as England actually had a much smaller population. Yet the reason it could keep pace is because, ironically, the king in England was a stronger force, a stronger political force than the king in France. Today, of course, our associations are the opposite, but that's because the lesson the French took from the 100 Years' War was that you absolutely need a strong monarchy to win wars, because otherwise you're going to get carved up by foreign pretenders. And I could keep on going, right? I could talk about cities, I could talk about the formation of nationality, and that's just the 100 Years' War. And of course, even, the US presidency in the 19th century might seem narrower. But to understand what they're thinking, suddenly you have to know things about, Quaker culture, how the Puritans settled the New World, the classics that they're referencing all the time, the biblical references that they're referencing all the time. Otherwise, you can't read primary sources. You don't understand them. You don't comprehend them. So my advice would be to understand the mechanics of history, observe both the modern world and at least one really distinct example, like a society that's significantly different, right? And then after that, do a casual reading. Like, the casual reading will inform you as to events. The deep study will inform you as to, the mechanics of human nature, of power, of economic development. And I think you need both.